So maybe as a believer, someone has said to you before, they will know you by your fruits. And typically when this comes out, it's generally in a very religious setting. It's a description of Christian performance, being out there. Are you trying hard? How's your effort? Are you doing enough? Are you serving? They're going to know you by that outward human expression of laborers. And I want you to know this. That verse is in the Bible, but when we hear about fruits in the Bible, if it's a human, it's almost always from human effort in a negative sense, especially talking about believers. But when we hear about fruits from a believer, it's always actually in the context of the fruit of the Spirit. So I want you to notice this. While that verse is in there, Matthew chapter 7:16, if we just back up a little bit and were to use that verse, we also often quote in context, it says this: beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. So you see, that verse is in there, but if we're going to quote it, we really should use it in context. We do not see that verse in context of a believer. Now, what about the spirit, the fruits of a believer? It's actually not our fruits. It's never, they'll know you by your fruits as a believer. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, verse 23 says, but the fruit of the Spirit, it is the Spirit's fruit, guys. And what is it? Is it a bunch of outward activities? Sometimes it may come out that way, but generally speaking, the fruit of the Spirit is joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and against all such things there is no law. Galatians 5:22-23 tells us. It is His Spirit. Even more, you do need to know this, Christian. If you're worried about are your fruits enough, is God pleased? Matthew chapter 7, verse 18 makes it pretty clear. It says, a good tree, if you're a believer, you're a good tree. You're not a good tree because of your performance. You're a good tree because of your faith, because you're a believer. And it says a good tree, and I quote, cannot produce bad fruit. What do you mean? A Christian can never do something bad? That's not at all what it means. It means the fruit is not your fruit. If you're a good tree, all of those attributes I just described, they're not coming from you. They're coming from the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit cannot exhibit anything but love, kindness, peace, and joy, even though we sometimes tend to walk in the flesh and flub it up. And it goes on to say that a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. Why? Again, because it's not human effort. The fruits being described are not of ourselves. So how will they know us? By our outwardly works? Sure, sometimes that is some evidence of it, but John chapter 13, verse 35 tells us very plainly, they will know you by your love for one another. Love comes in all kinds of forms, but let's be careful not to turn it into a work, performance-based theology. It's love, kindness, gentleness. God bless you. Hope that helped you understand fruit a little bit better.